Hi! Within this section, we're going to see how we can use the backdoors that we have created with the wheel within external networks. So far, we have tested them on the same NAT network. But in order to run those backdoors on this external network, we have to do some configurations on our router settings. And we're going to see something called port forwarding in order to do that. Now, if you're ready, let's get started.
Hi! Within this section, we're going to discuss how we can run our backdoor attacks on the outside network. So up until now, we have been testing our attacks on the NAT network. And after the inside network section, we can use all the attacks in the outside network as well. So of course you cannot use the man-in-the-middle attacks in the outside network. You have to be on the same network in order to conduct these attacks. But for backdoors for beef, you can use outside network. And in this section, we're going to focus on backdoors. So maybe you're thinking right now, rather than supplying my L host as NAT network IP, which is 10.02.15 in our case, I can use public IP, right? And you're right. You can use public IP, your public IP, which can you gather by writing what is my public IP to the Google, and you can set it to the L host when you create your backdoor. And that's it. But you have to do some additional settings as well, and I'm going to show you what are those. Basically, your public IP will retrieve this connection from the external network. Okay, so your victim will open the backdoor and this connection will come to your router, but your router will have to forward this to your Kali Linux machine. So you will have to obtain a local IP with your Kali Linux machine, a one starting with 192, and you have to tell your router to forward this connection to your Kali Linux machine. So you will have to work with your USB Wi-Fi card in order to obtain a local IP to your Kali Linux machine. And you have to set the L host to your local IP in the MSF console, and you have to do a setting in your router administrator panel to forward this connection as well. And don't worry, I'm going to show you how to do all of these things in the next lectures. Hi! Within this lecture, we're going to see how to obtain our public IP and use it on our backdoor creation process. As you can see, I'm using the WLAN O interface with a public IP that is directly coming from the router. So I have a public IP which starts with 192.168 and it ends with 121. So I'm going to use this as a local host back in my Metasploit framework, and I'm going to use my public IP in the wheel. So I have to create a backdoor from scratch, and I know how to do that, right? I'm going to use wheel, so I'm going to in my op directory and I'm starting the wheel. So as you might remember, you have to run python wheel.py in order to start the wheel. So let me run python 3 wheel.py and it will start the wheel for me. So maybe you remember this process. We have two general tools, which is evasion and ordinance, and we're going to use the evasion, so I will say use one. I'm going to list out all the possible payloads for me. So in here we have used 14, I believe, before. Now I'm going to choose another one just to make sure that this works as well. And maybe you have come up with a different one which is working. As I explained before, antivirus solutions always update themselves, so maybe you have to try some like 10 of them in order to find a working one. but I'm going to use 9, which is in CS programming language, and most of the time it works. So I will say use 9, and in here we have the options. Okay, we can see the options. I'm going to change them. First, as you can see, we have to specify the L host and L port. And of course, you can change the processors and sleep in order to customize your backdoor like we did in the previous sections. Even though they're optional, it is actually necessary to change them in order to avoid some detection of the antivirus solutions. So I'm going to set sleep to 3 and I'm going to set processors to 1. Later on, if I say options, then I will see my L port is already 8080. I'm just going to leave that as well, and I'm going to change only the L host, and I have to specify my public IP this time. So how do you get your public IP? As I said before, you have to go to Google. Okay, and let me go to Google in here to my Firefox browser and say google.com, and you can search for what is my IP, and it will display your public IP. Of course, I won't show my public IP in here. I will pixelate it, but you will see it in this picture in here, and all you have to do is just copy this public IP from here and paste it on your terminal. Okay, so come here and say paste and hit enter once you do that. Now you're ready to generate the backdoor. So hit generate and it will ask you for a name. Just choose a new name for your new backdoor. I will say like something like outside network backdoor, and it will generate and save it on my user share folder. So let me go to that folder and find my newly created backdoor. So we have to go to computer here and user and then share, and I believe it's under wheel output, so it should be down there. Scroll down a little bit and find the wheel output folder here. I believe it's here, and under compiled you will see your newly created backdoor. So these two were the existing ones. I'm going to take the new one and use it. And I'm just going to copy this under my web root of Apache server. And in a real life example, you would want to zip it and upload it to some server like maybe Dropbox or maybe WeTransfer, because you would be on the outside network. Okay? So I pasted it in my backdoors folder here on my Apache server. I'm going to transfer this using my local IP one more time. So I'm going to temporarily put my Windows on the same network as my Kali Linux, but you don't have to do that. You can just transfer this with Dropbox or WeTransfer, as I said. Of course, you can try to use your webroot Apache server as well. So let me run MSF console because we would need to set up a listener as usual. And this won't be any different from the previous examples because we're going to use local IP of Kali Linux in this case as well. So let me open multi-handler one more time. Remember, we have to say use exploit/multi/handler. And I have to set payload to Windows meterpreter. Okay, so Windows/meterpreter/reverse HTTP again. And then if you say show options, it will display the options to be changed, and we have to change the L host. So I'm going to change my L host to be my new local IP, and I can get it from another terminal by running ifconfig as usual. And my local IP is 192.168.121. So L host is 192.168.121. Okay? So now we are ready to listen for incoming connections. And the reason we are doing that is because the router will forward this to our local IP as I explained before. And we need to configure our router to do that as well. And that's what we are going to do in the next lecture. Hi! Within this lecture, we're going to see how to configure our router to forward the incoming connections to our Kali Linux machine. And we're listening in the Kali Linux. Now all we have to do is just configure the router, then we can test our backdoor. So let me open the Firefox because we're going inside of our router's administrator account. And in order to do that, you have to just write 192.168.1.1 to reach your administrator panel. And if you don't know how to reach your administrator panel, you can always call your internet service provider and ask them how you can actually reach this administrator panel and what's the username and the password. We have seen this in the network section, so I think you're familiar with the process. So when you log into your administrator account, you will see a page like this, but all routers have some kind of different layout, different panels, so you will have to search and find port forwarding. If you cannot find it, again, try to call your internet service provider and ask them how you can port forward to some port, to some IP. And they will explain it to you or they will do it for you. In my case, it's like 4 sections in here, like maintenance, advanced, basic, and status. And port forwarding will be out there. You just need to explore and try to discover it. And in my case, it's under device and in the port forwarding tab. So this will ask you the host and the port to forward the information coming from the external network to your Kali machine. And in here, as you can see, as an interface, the internet is chosen. And for external and internal start port, I will give 8080. And for internal host, I will give the IP address of the Kali Linux. So I believe it was 192.168. Let me go to ifconfig one more. Yeah, it was 121. And the port again will be 8080. So I will try to create this port forwarding rule. And I believe it needs a name, so I will call it test and try to submit one more time. So now it's mapped in here. So it's ruled if some information comes from port 8080, it should forward it to Kali Linux. Now I'm ready. And again, if you cannot do that, please call your internet provider and they will do it for you. And if it doesn't work, call them again and they will find a solution for you. So as I said before, I put my Windows and the Kali Linux on the same network in order to transfer these backdoors, but you don't have to do that. You can just upload it to WeTransfer or something and download it to that website and try running it with this way as well. And I believe now I have downloaded the newly created outside network.exe and I'm going to run it, and it will send my connection to my public IP and my router will forward that connection to my Kali Linux if everything goes well. So let's see if we got the connection in the Kali Linux. Yeah, as you can see, we got the connection in here. So now you know how to run backdoors on the outside networks as well. And this is the general idea. If you're going to work with outside network, if you're going to receive some connection in your public IP, then you need to forward that information to your Kali Linux by using this port forwarding technique that we have just learned. So let's stop here. Within the next section, we're going to focus on using beef on the outside networks as well.
Hi, now you know how to run backdoors on the external network. But the important part is that this technique is not limited to backdoors at all. If you have any connection coming from some external network to your public IP, then you need to do this port configuration, port forwarding thing. So, if you're trying to run some tag on external network and if you're receiving any information from external network to your public IP, then don't forget to apply this technique into your router. Now, if you're ready, let's move on to the next section.